Some people are literally building aeroplanes in their garages and flying them legally without a pilot's license. Flying usually demands licenses, training, and money, but ultralight aircraft under FAA Part 103. Ultralight regulations quietly changed everything for hobby pilots. Now here's where things get interesting. Because most people assume flying an airplane always means years of training, endless paperwork, and a pilot's license. But there's a small corner of aviation where the rules look completely different. It all comes down to something called FAA Part 103 Ultralight regulations. These rules were designed to allow simple recreational flying without the heavy bureaucracy that comes with traditional aviation. And honestly, it opened the door for thousands of aviation enthusiasts who just wanted to experience flight without turning it into a career. Under these regulations, the aircraft itself has to stay extremely light and simple. The empty weight must remain under 254 pounds, which forces designers to build incredibly minimalist machines. No heavy systems, no unnecessary equipment, just the basics needed to fly. Fuel capacity is also limited to 5 gallons. That might sound tiny, but these aircraft sip fuel slowly, allowing pilots to stay in the air for around an hour or two. Plenty of time for a peaceful flight over fields, rivers, and open countryside. Another big rule is seating. These aircraft must be single seat only. No passengers, no co-pilots. The person flying it is the only one on board. Speed is limited as well. Ultralights aren't meant to race across the sky. Their performance is intentionally restricted, so they stay slower and easier to handle. And the purpose? Recreational flying only. That's the key idea behind the entire category. These aircraft were never meant for commercial operations or transportation. They're built purely for the joy of flight. Because of that simplicity, a huge community of hobbyists has emerged. People who build their own airplanes in workshops, barns, and garages, then take them into the sky on calm evenings. And that brings us to the first aircraft on this list. One that helped make ultralight aviation explode in popularity. Wait, you're watching right now but not subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button so we can move on with the video. You did? Okay, cool. Now back to the planes. Aerolite 103. Story really takes off. The Aerolite 103 isn't just another ultralight. It's one of the aircraft that helped prove how accessible flying could actually be. The design first appeared in 1996, created by aviation enthusiast Terry Rear. At the time, ultralight aviation was already gaining attention, but many aircraft were still difficult to build or unpredictable in the air. Terry wanted something different, something simple, lightweight, and reliable enough for everyday hobby pilots. So he designed the Aerolite 103 with exactly that mindset. The very first prototype took flight in October of 1996, marking the beginning of what would eventually become one of the most recognizable ultralight aircraft in the community. Early testing continued as improvements were made, refining the design before it reached wider audiences. Then came a huge moment. In 1997, the aircraft debuted at EAA AirVenture Oshkosh, the world's largest aviation gathering. For aviation enthusiasts, Oshkosh is basically the Super Bowl of airplanes. Thousands of aircraft, pilots, and builders all meeting in one place. And the Aerolite didn't just show up quietly. It won Grand Champion Ultralight. That victory immediately put the aircraft on the radar of builders and hobby pilots everywhere. Over the next decade and a half, the design proved its popularity. Between 1997 and 2012, hundreds of Aerolite 103 aircraft were built by pilots around the world. The aircraft developed a reputation for being forgiving, lightweight, and surprisingly fun to fly. Eventually, the design changed hands. Production moved to DeLand, Florida, where aviation builder Dennis Carley took over the project. Dennis wasn't new to the industry. He had already built more than 100 ultralight and light sport aircraft over the years, so the design stayed in experienced hands. Now let's talk about the airplane itself. The Aerolite 103 is a single-seat aircraft built specifically to meet Part 103 requirements. Its empty weight is only 235 pounds, which keeps it safely within ultralight limits. Yet despite being so light, it still carries a gross weight of 600 pounds, giving pilots enough capacity for comfortable recreational flights. Performance is where things start to feel impressive for such a tiny aircraft. The Aerolite typically cruises between 45 and 63 miles per hour, making it perfect for low-altitude sightseeing. Its stall speed sits around 26 to 28 miles per hour, meaning it can stay stable even at very slow speeds. Climb performance is also solid, reaching 500 to 650 feet per minute depending on the engine setup. And takeoff? This little aircraft barely needs a runway. Under good conditions, it can lift off in 100 to 200 feet. That's shorter than some neighborhood streets. Power comes from small engines ranging between 28 and 50 horsepower. Many builders choose lightweight Hearth engines, though newer setups even include electric power options with battery systems, which is something the ultralight world has started experimenting with recently. Fuel capacity remains limited to 5 gallons, following Part 103 rules, but that still allows roughly 1.5 to 2 hours of flight time, more than enough for a relaxed evening flight. Then there's the price, which is part of why this aircraft became so popular with beginners. A kit version costs around $18,000, allowing builders to assemble the aircraft themselves. For those who don't want to spend months building, a ready-to-fly version costs around $28,000. Compared to traditional airplanes that can cost hundreds of thousands, the Aerolite feels almost shockingly attainable. And that's exactly why so many first-time builders choose it. It's simple, affordable, lightweight, and built specifically for the pure experience of flying. But surprisingly, the next aircraft on this list looks nothing like a typical ultralight. And that design caught a lot of pilots off guard. Badland Ultralight. But here's where things start to look completely different. Most ultralights have that tiny, delicate appearance, thin tubing, light fabric, and a design that screams weekend hobby plane. The Badland Ultralight doesn't look like that at all. In fact, the first time many pilots see it, they assume it's some kind of experimental bush plane. The project started back in 2016, created by builder Chris Duell. At the time, he was working out of Las Vegas, building and refining the idea of a tougher ultralight aircraft, something that looked rugged enough for rough strips and backcountry flying. Not long after, the operation moved to Truman, Minnesota, where development continued at a small rural airstrip. The goal stayed simple from day one: build high-quality ultralight aircraft that remain completely legal under Part 103. while still feeling like a serious airplane. And visually, the Badland delivers. At first glance, it looks much larger and more aggressive than most ultralights. Yet somehow the aircraft still stays within the strict ultralight limit, keeping the empty weight right around 254 pounds. That balance is what makes it fascinating to builders. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Badland offers 5 different kit configurations, allowing builders to customize the aircraft depending on their budget and goals. Some pilots want a simple build to get in the air quickly, while others go all in with upgraded materials and performance parts. There's also a ready-to-fly option, which means someone can skip the building process entirely and jump straight into flying. Price varies depending on how far someone wants to go. The F1 UL base kit starts around $11,600, which is already competitive in the ultralight world. But for builders who want something stronger and more advanced, premium setups with titanium airframes and carbon fiber components can climb toward $45,000. Engine choices add another layer of customization. Many builders choose the Polini Thor engine, a lightweight power plant known for strong performance in ultralight aircraft. Others prefer a Hearth engine, another popular option in this category. And more recently, builders have started experimenting with the Chaos Concept Thump Air engine, a 4-stroke design aimed at smoother operation. But the detail that really sets the Badland apart is its look. The wings are covered with fabric, like most ultralights, but the fuselage covering is completely optional. That means many builders leave the aircraft with its frame exposed, creating a raw, mechanical appearance. It looks tough, industrial, almost like a flying off-road machine. And for a lot of pilots, that rugged style is exactly the appeal. Because when it rolls onto a grass strip or a dirt runway, it doesn't just look like a hobby airplane. It looks ready for adventure. But the next aircraft on this list takes things in the opposite direction entirely, because it proves ultralights don't always have to look fragile. Hummel UltraCruiser. And this next aircraft surprises a lot of people. When most pilots think of ultralights, they picture open frames, fabric wings, and the lightest materials possible. Metal construction usually means heavier airplanes, the kind that definitely wouldn't qualify under ultralight regulations. Yet somehow, the Hummel UltraCruiser manages to pull it off. The design traces back to aviation builder Morris Hummel, who was born in Bryan, Ohio, back in 1915. Hummel spent decades around aircraft design, constantly experimenting with ways to simplify airplanes while keeping them strong. And the UltraCruiser carried a story behind its name. Hummel reportedly survived a serious aircraft crash earlier in his life. After walking away from the accident, he jokingly referred to the new design as God's gift. The nickname stuck among builders, becoming part of the aircraft's identity over the years. The UltraCruiser officially entered the ultralight world around 2000. At first, it was sold strictly as planned. Builders would purchase the drawings and construct the aircraft themselves, cutting, shaping, and assembling each piece in their own workshop. For a lot of aviation enthusiasts, that process was part of the excitement. Later on, the aircraft became available as a complete kit, making it easier for new builders to get started without fabricating every component from scratch. Then another big moment came in 2021. The company and design were acquired by Matt Higgins and Lori Higgins, who began modernizing the manufacturing process and improving parts availability for builders. But the most impressive thing about the UltraCruiser is still the structure itself. This aircraft is built almost entirely from metal, something rarely seen in the ultralight category. Yet it still manages to stay under the weight limit, with an empty weight of about 252 pounds and a gross weight of roughly 575 pounds. Performance numbers are surprisingly solid, too. Cruising speed sits around 63 miles per hour, while stall speed drops to about 28 miles per hour, keeping it well within ultralight handling limits. Depending on the engine configuration, the aircraft can climb anywhere between 500 and 1,000 feet per minute, which is impressive for a machine this light. And the entry cost remains accessible. Builders can purchase the plans for about $370, while a complete kit starts around $21,000. What the UltraCruiser really proves is something many pilots didn't expect. Ultralight aircraft don't always have to be fragile fabric machines. Sometimes, they can be strong, durable metal airplanes that still fit perfectly inside the ultralight world. But here's something that really needs to be said before anyone gets too excited. Even though aircraft under FAA Part 103 ultralight regulations don't require a pilot's license, that doesn't mean someone should just jump in and take off. These machines still fly like real airplanes. Pilots need to understand basic controls, weather, and safety procedures. And at the end of the day, the biggest rule of aviation still applies. Gravity works the same. That's why introductory flight training is always strongly recommended. Legal Eagle.
Ready.
And this next aircraft might be the most legendary DIY ultralight ever built. The Legal Eagle was almost a radical idea, an airplane for the price of a used motorcycle. Designed by Leonard Milholland in Brookshire, Texas, it aimed to make aviation simple and affordable. Milholland believed flying had become too complicated and expensive, so he stripped the design to the basics. One famous detail is its airfoil. When asked, Milholland said it was LP2, lead pencil number 2, a half joke, half philosophy. The aircraft was meant to be buildable by anyone in a home workshop. The approach worked. Depending on the builder's resourcefulness, total construction costs range from $4,000 to $6,000, almost unheard of in aviation. The Legal Eagle fits ultralight rules, with an empty weight of 244 pounds and a 5-gallon fuel tank. Performance is respectable. Top speed around 60 miles per hour, stall speed about 25 miles per hour, making it gentle and manageable for recreational flying. Power comes from a half Volkswagen engine, lightweight and easy to maintain. Plans cost only $60, making entry nearly effortless. The Legal Eagle became a legend, proving that with some tools, a workshop, and determination, anyone could build and fly their own airplane. Kolb Firefly. And here's where the story gets even more interesting. The Kolb Firefly, built by Kolb Aircraft, has been around the ultralight world for years, and it has developed a loyal following for one simple reason. Its design is incredibly practical. Right away, the aircraft stands out with a few unique features. The Firefly uses folding wings, which might sound like a small detail, but it completely changes how owners store the aircraft. Instead of needing a full airport hangar, many pilots can simply fold the wings back and park the airplane inside a trailer or a small garage. For hobby pilots who don't live near big airfields, that's a huge advantage. The structure itself is also impressively tough for such a light aircraft. The Firefly uses a chromoly steel fuselage cage, giving it a strong internal frame while still keeping the aircraft lightweight. Performance is solid across the board. The aircraft typically runs on a 40-horsepower engine, which might sound small, but it's more than enough for an ultralight weighing around 250 pounds empty with a gross weight of about 500 pounds. Fuel capacity remains the standard 5 gallons, keeping it compliant with ultralight rules. In the air, the Firefly cruises comfortably with a top speed of around 63 miles per hour. Its stall speed sits near 27 miles per hour, and climb performance reaches about 750 feet per minute, giving pilots plenty of confidence during takeoff. The base kit costs roughly $18,000, putting it right in the middle of the ultralight price range. For those wanting something bigger, the company also produces the Kolb Mark III, an experimental two-seat aircraft powered by a Rotax engine in the 80 to 100 horsepower range. But the Firefly remains the favorite for many ultralight pilots, because when the wings fold up and the aircraft rolls into a small garage, it suddenly feels like owning an airplane is actually possible. Flying once meant huge training costs and years of licensing, but ultralights completely changed that. Now the sky is open to anyone passionate enough to build and fly. So, which of these aircraft would you choose? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible aviation stories.